What's up guys, this is Anime Crossover. I'm back with a new episode of What If Naruto Went to the Marvel Universe Part 8. And if you did enjoy this video, give this a like, and if you're new, like my content, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more crossover fictions. Now let's begin this new video.
Chapter 9. Progress. Patronus stood out as he watched the distant radio tower while expanding the range of his Kitsune Sense as far as he could for the time being. His current action, however, was disrupted when his reluctant buddy asked him a strange inquiry. Why? He didn't turn around to respond. Why for what? Why aren't you admonishing me? Lara inquired. After a short period, Patronus turned around and faced her. For what? I killed those men on our way here, and the same goes for you, Lara added, her body still trembling after her ordeal. You killed them as well, she said as she went for the kill. No, I didn't, Patronus stated emphatically, much to Lara's surprise. I threw those shuriken hard enough to knock them out, and I dipped them in a sleeping toxin, so they're just sleeping, for about 6 hours. Downtrodden by this explanation, Lara glanced at the fire in front of her, sensing her garments drying. Patronus, unbeknownst to her, was drying his clothes with his fire chakra as small streams of steam flowed off his shoulders. I see, Lara replied, trying unsuccessfully to calm her trembling palms. Was that your first time? The archer asked, as Patronus nodded. Yeah, the first time sticks with you, Lara said, her eyes widening at the cloaked ninja. Anyway, are you ready? Lara rose up, her shoulders popped from exertion, and stretched her arms as she took the lead, Naruto shielding the rear. He's not the same. Another big metal tube in front of them looked to suit any less of a battleship. They started walking into the tunnel as another wave of sounds echoed through the acoustics and reached their ears. It's really cold out here. Shush. You'll get used to it. It's even colder up by the radio tower. This island's weather is insane, the man whined like a child. Everything about this island is crazy, brother. Patronus and Lara made their way to the tunnel's center, where they sought cover in an ancient car that appeared to be from the early 1900s, while a bright light shone from the other end of the tunnel, where Naruto detected opponents using Kitsune Sense. Hey! Get that damned gun off of me! Ignoring the protest, Patronus urged Lara to draw her bow and arrow before aiming it at the nearest man and releasing her grip to shoot the arrow at the man's back of the neck. The victim fell forward silently, while one of his companions continued to speak as if nothing had happened. I'm going to check in. Do you need anything? No, I'm fine. Lara fired another shot, killing another, before firing another arrow at her next target. However, the arrow deviated from its path and struck the wall, alerting their enemies as the one near the light fired multiple rounds at them in fast succession. As if that wasn't horrible enough, more of them were entering the tunnel and nearing their spot. Patronus grumbled as he deftly hurled numerous shuriken at the men, while Lara fired her arrows at the man with the vantage position. Patronus spotted two guys approaching from behind them and launched a smoke ball at the end of the tunnel to blind the viewpoint. Behind us, he murmured to Lara, who nodded as they fought the men. Lara shoved one of them, catching him off unaware as he collapsed to the ground after being kicked in the legs. She killed him by hitting his head with a rock she picked up from the ground as he fell to the ground. When the archer looked to the side, he saw Patronus grab his man's arm and snap it at the joint. The man yelled before being kicked in the head with an axe. Because the smoke was still hiding the other side of the tunnel, the duo crossed it and crouched behind a constructed cover just as the vantage point man opened fire with a hail of bullets. Patronus hurled another smoke bomb onto the building as the haze obscured the man's vision, but he continued to fire at them, although blindly. I can't see him, Lara grumbled as she searched for him, but the smoke blinded her as well. Lara focused on her gift, seeing the environment change colors as everything was light blue in general, with the fires being yellow and the gunmen being red. She restrained a gasp when she caught a fleeting glimpse of Patronus, whose aura was a dazzling sun-like color. Naruto, on the other hand, had a feeling about the girl from the moment he laid eyes on her. The ninja would not have spotted the faint sparkle of green within her normally brown eyes if he did not have attentive eyes. Lara returned her gaze to the gunman's building and saw his aura as clear as day before firing an arrow at his head, putting an end to the rain of bullets on them. The hero and archer dashed towards the stone edifice, passing through the corridors as they heard fresh voices ahead of them. How many of them are there? Shish, only 2, from the new wreck. Lara approached with caution, her bow drawn, as Patronus extended his hidden blades from his sleeves. Before they reached the second story, Lightning flashed briefly and displayed two shadows indicating their positions on the top roof as they silently mounted the stairs. A scream alerted them to the fact that a bowman was preparing an arrow, but Lara was faster and shot one through the heart. Before they started their journey, she ransacked the body for additional arrows because her quiver was nearly empty. Two more males leapt down from a nearby building and quickly exchanged punches. Naruto handled them well, slashing their legs with his blades, pulling them down to their knees and piercing them at the shoulders before simultaneously kicking them in the heads. Patronus led the way, flicking the blood from the blades as he hopped across a shattered metal bridge, followed by Lara to the opposite building. This bunker. World War II era. Lara said as she took the lead and leapt-kicked the wall in front of them, hoisting herself to the second floor. Patronus trailed her as she led the way to the summit, probably Japanese. With a pointed finger, Patronus remarked, "Hey, look at that." Lara noticed him pointing to a rope close by that connected to the mid-rear area of the first building in front of them. When they entered the structure, she used her bow to descend the zipline, followed by Patronus, who used his rope dart as well. However, this resulted in an extremely wet atmosphere. "Exhale, ah. It's cold. Over here," said another voice from the opposite side of the corridor. "Alright, let's get these lines hooked up." As they approached the dry floor, Lara and Naruto used their senses to establish it was an enemy. These brothers are in desperate need of power. "Ow. Fuck," yelled a younger voice over the corridors as Patronus and Lara proceeded ahead until the latter noticed a document atop the surrounding boxes and lantern. "What's that, Lara?" Patronus inquired of the archer who had read it before she looked at him. "Someone who follows this Father Matthias. Apparently, this man was the first Solari." Lara turned to face the direction where she heard the sounds. "All of them are Solari." "At least they have a name now," Patronus shrugged, "otherwise I would have called them men in jungle-ass outfits or tree men." Lara gave a deadpan expression. "Solari sounds better." "Oh lord," Lara thought internally, rolling her eyes. When they got to the door, they heard additional conversation from the neighboring Solari. "How many people came in from the new wreck?" "A couple dozen. And some women," the young Solari exclaimed. "Father Mathis brought in one himself." "For the ritual?" inquired the other Solari. "Probably. We'll find out tonight." Lara spotted the hole in the wall on the left, but it was filled with some sort of gas. Patronus noticed it also and pointed to the valve, which Lara deactivated with her axe, expelling the gas since the hole was now clean of the flying substance. They stooped their way through the small and narrow holes into a new room where they could hear the Solari once more. Be careful, it's loaded with fuel," a Solari advised outside the room. "Yeah," said the Solari, his voice straining. "No shit, what do they need it for?" "Probably a generator." For the tower." Lara hurried out of the chamber and fired her arrows at the two Solari at the end of the corridor, just as another Solari ran down the stairs with his bow in hand. Patronus ran at the Solari and punched him in the solar plexus, knocking the air out of his lungs, before finishing him out with an uppercut. After ensuring that the bodies were hidden in the bathroom, the couple headed up the stairs and found another Solari, who was also dealt with expertly. They entered a vast metal room after climbing via the small ventilation shaft on the left wall. Patronus dug another ventilation tunnel and climbed to a corridor that led to two different rooms. Lara followed him in and examined the other room's glass wall. "That glass appears to be frail." "I can punch through it," the hooded ninja said casually after his own investigation. Lara shook her head as Patronus examined the glass wall with his hand, while the latter discovered a nearby valve and turned it forcefully with her axe. A Solari man stormed into the room and ran towards them, saying, "You're dead, outsiders." "What the hell?" Lara screamed in astonishment as gas filled the corridor, coughing after inhaling some. "Back to the other room. Go, go, go," Patronus exclaimed as Lara and he returned to the previous area. "Where are you going? There's no way out for you two," shrieked the Solari. Patronus and Lara looked around the room for an exit until the latter discovered a lamp on the floor. Before the archer snatched it and flung it through the ventilation shaft into the gas-filled room, she added two and two together. "Hey! What do you think you're doing?" screamed the Solari as Patronus drew Lara in for protection, his back to the explosion. Following the small explosion, the two separated and headed to the other ruined room, where the Solari was pinned against the wall near the door by a massive debris. Lara spotted a submachine gun near the man and grabbed it to examine its operation. "I'd say that suits you, but I'm sure you wouldn't like that," Patronus joked as the Solari attempted to flee, but then stopped. Just end it. Please, cried the Solari, hoping to be put out of his pain. Patronus stared at the archer as she aimed the machine gun's barrel at Solari's head. Lara said coldly as she shot one into him, "Go to hell." "I don't want to get on her bad side," Naruto stated. "You're already on her bad side. Why complicate matters?" "Shut it, Fox." Lara turned to face the cloaked hero. "What?" Nothing," Patronus lied as Lara walked in and out of the room. "Now, turn her on." "Oh no." Patronus rushed to Lara's side just as they were caught off guard by multiple spotlights in the vast area. Several Solari men charged at them, but Lara and Patronus held their ground. Patronus tossed a barrel at one of the Solari in the back before jumping onto the other side and ruthlessly punching him repeatedly, while the archer shot her gun at two of them. "She has a machine gun. Watch out." Patronus smirked as he began to finish them out one by one while the markswoman mowed the remaining soldiers. After searching the rooms for more guys, the pair deposited the bodies in a distant corner of the room before inspecting it for supplies or clues. Lara reached the second story and entered what appeared to be a supply room, where she discovered Solari scribbling. "Father Mathis will set us free." She wondered as she collected extra clips for her pistols from a neighboring table. "Find anything?" Patronus inquired from the lowest floor as Lara gathered with him. "Scribbles about Matthias setting them free." Patronus inquired the obvious with the title of his head. "From what? The island or something else?" "I'm not sure. At least not yet. Hopefully you do soon," Patronus replied, taking the lead this time, passing through the massive doors on the ground level. Lara trailed him down the stairs as another Solari fell from the ceiling through a metal vent. Before the man could respond, Naruto grabbed him and choke slammed him to the ground, knocking the Solari out. When Lara wasn't looking, Patronus effortlessly opened the metal door and looted the body for extra ammo. Lara looked up when she heard the door open and saw Patronus enter the room. She quickly followed him and realized they were inside. "We're in the radio tower," Lara announced, much to Patronus' amazement. "Really? Wow, go us." Lara jiggled with a portion that shattered once the dup neared the leaf-covered control console. Lara said via her radio with a frustrated sigh. "Alex, are you there?" "Yeah. Yo, Alex. You okay, man?" Patronus asked, pulling out his arm-bound communicator. "You sound like you're out of breath." "Just fine, Patronus. Out of shape is all." Alex laughed after taking a breath. Lara took her turn and spoke about the issue. "The console is a shambles." Patronus, is this true? Captain America inquired. "Sadly, yes, damn it," Alex yelled over the radio. "Well, unless you two can find a Radio Shack nearby, you'll have to patch in manually through the maintenance panel." "Okay, sounds simple enough," Lara said, hoping for a straightforward task. When she stated that, Patronus shook his head, and Lara looked at him. "Never, ever say that, Lara." Why?" "Yeah, well, Alex said hesitantly, drawing the attention of the couple through their individual radios. "You're going to have to find it first." "And where is this panel we need to find, Alex?" Patronus inquired, despite knowing the answer. "On those old towers, they installed the panels high up, I mean way up." "Oh, I see it," Patronus said, after discovering a big hole in the room as snow began to drift in and the sun broke through the clouds. Lara followed his gaze and noticed the silhouette of the tower they required, with its red blinking light indicating its location. "OSH*T, she groaned again as she looked down. "Great to be climbing again." Patronus cynically exclaimed, "Hooray for us." He then found a little gap in the wall and prodded Lara. "Over there. A way out." He and Lara slipped through it, avoiding the steam blasts from the pipes. "That tower better work after all this," Lara grumbled as she and Patronus huddled beneath a continuous stream of steam. "Do you mean we'll get paid?" Lara shook her head at the hooded hero's poor joke. "Why me?" TTIIPMX exterior base. They eventually made it out of the base and were standing on a stone balcony when an unusual sight caught their eye. The radio tower they wanted to travel to was across the vast gap between their location and the mountain on the other side, as did what appeared to be an abandoned complex around said building. Fortunately for them, there was a massive metal suspension bridge to cross without fear. For the time being, at least. "Alright, let's get started," Patronus stated as he stepped down from the balcony onto the lower floor. Lara watched white droplets falling from the sky and expressed her thoughts. Snow? This isn't normal, don't you think? She queried the hero, who turned to face Lara as she fell to the ground. What? You're asking for my opinion? Patronus exclaimed, raising his arms in amazement. Yay, I'm not an outsider. Sigh, never mind. Lara grumbled as she brushed by him, much to Patronus' dismay. She arrived at the damaged bridge's center and crossed the lone beam that was the only one linked to the opposite side. That is, until a Solary jumped out of an abandoned truck and kidnapped her. I've got one. Come right here. Lara. Patronus yelled as Lara grabbed onto the truck to prevent being captured by the Solary. The archer wriggled free of his grasp long enough for her legs to bend on his chest. Get off. Let go. She yelled as her legs kicked him in the chest, knocking the Solary off the bridge as Patronus approached her place. The cloaked ninja whistled appreciatively as he glanced down at the location where the Solary landed. Pretty deep, he said, looking at Lara, who was pulling out her weapon. Nice kick. Thank you, she said, her weapon directed ahead and her breath a little thick. Damn, how many of them are there? Patronus shrugged his shoulders as he stood next to her. For the time being, let's assume an entire army. Don't get your hopes up for smaller numbers, and always be aware of your surroundings, even if it's calm and quiet. As they heard their remarks, another set of voices echoed in the valley. Damn it, they must have killed everyone in the base. We need some help out here, yelled another Solary over the wintry storm. The two took cover as the Solary, who were hiding in an old structure far away from the bridge, started fire with their rifles and tossed flaming bottles at them. Patronus replied by leaping into the air, catching the bottles and returning them to them. Ah! Watch out! As flames spread out over the ground, the Solary raced away from their covers to avoid the smashed bottles. While Patronus was in the air, he nodded to Lara and fired several shots at the exposed Solary. After that, the ninja threw a smoke bomb at the front of the building, rapidly blocking the remaining adversaries' view. Patronus led the way to the structure with a hand signal, while Lara switched to her bow for silent takedowns as they approached. That's when they observed another area of buildings on their right side, uphill, where another wave of Solary was attacking them. Patronus and Lara had grasped their roles in their trip by this point. The hooded and disguised ninja was the hand-to-hand fighter for the Solary grunts who preferred the hands-on approach, while Lara was the long-range fighter for those who were too far away for Patronus to reach without jeopardizing himself. After Lara finished off the last of the men in the plaza with a rock to the head, Patronus dashed to the next building and, once out of Lara's sight, shunshine behind a Solary who aimed at his companion's head. I don't think so, Patronus said, grabbing the man's head and slamming his skull into the stone wall with the right hidden blade. Lara dashed into the same structure after receiving the all-clear from Patronus, reaching the first floor before leaping across to a stone foundation. Defend the tower, brothers. Great, more on the way, Lara muttered, holding her bow as Patronus landed next to her after a roll jump from the roof. A Solary had climbed to their location and swung his axe at Lara, who had narrowly escaped. She slammed her body against his, shocking him, as the archer quickly fired an arrow at his leg, knocking him down. Lara grabbed a nearby box and crushed it on his head, putting him to sleep. Come on. Get down there. Keep them away from the tower, says the narrator. Patronus took out another smoke bomb and tossed it into the new square center, blinding them once more as he entered it. Naruto can sense the Solary's aura as clearly as day with his Kitsune Sense and took them out one by one with many jujitsu moves he learned from a Kisame of Ryozapaku. Come on. Let's get some fire out there. Lara's ears had picked up on it, but she couldn't tell where the flame bottles would appear. As she concentrated on her gift, the surroundings changed hues as the auras of the Solary and Patronus became obvious to her, along with the fire bottles. Lara took aim with her sharpened eyesight and launched her arrows at the Solary, watching as the shattered bottles spit flames on the men as they screamed in agony. As the two gathered in the center of the plaza, the doors opened, revealing a massive man in some sort of armor, holding a big rectangular shield in one hand and a machete in the other. Get out of my way, they're mine. All right then. Patronus stared blankly at his female lover. You want to take this one? Excuse me. Lara retorted angrily. Why me? How about you? Are you afraid you can't take him down? Patronus struck a contemplative attitude, waving his finger side to side. There's no doubt in my mind that I can beat him, but I'm more concerned about you. Huh? Lara said as the man with the blade lunged at them, although slowly. Men his size tend to be slow, especially with armor like his, so dodge his attack and hit him in the back, Patronus said as he and Lara dodged to different sides to avoid being hit. Sadly for one of them, the armored man chose the other gender. Shit. Lara said as she drew out her machine gun and fired at him, but he raised his shield to intercept the rounds while maintaining a steady approach towards her. The archer couldn't believe it when he saw Patronus standing there with his arms crossed. Unbelievable. What kind of hero is he? While she fired the gun until the need to reload became evident, Lara stumbled on a boulder and fell on her behind as the man took advantage of the opportunity to intensify his approach. Lara rolled out of the way as he swung his machete at him, seeing this. Lara, right now. Lara looked up when she heard his words and noticed what Patronus meant regarding the man's size. The machete's blade was trapped in the dirt, exposing his right side. She took advantage of the opportunity and grabbed a bottle before launching her retaliation, plunging her axe into the man's thigh while pounding his head with the bottle. Lara finished him down with the butt of her machine pistol after scooping it up as he quickly slumped to the ground, now that the man was stunned. Lara was about to fire a round at him when Patronus appeared next to her and smashed his fist against the helmet, putting an end to his movements. Oh my god. They're still alive. Run. Patronus turned around, smirking at their fright, and exclaimed, "That's right, you better run." He moaned after Lara elbowed him in the gut. "What are they afraid of? You completely brought him down." "You could have helped, you know," Lara said coldly, clearly upset by his actions. Patronus sighed and shrugged. "I could have, but I knew you could do it, and it's better to learn how to dodge bigger enemies now than later." He stared at the huge man's body and grabbed something. Looks like a bow tie. Lara caught the thrown object and glanced at it for a while before pocketing it as she and Patronus entered the building and began fighting the remaining Solari on the first floor. "I'm starting to run low on ammo." "Fortunately, there's an ammo shopping center here," Patronus remarked, motioning to the floor. There were several little ammo cases and arrow quivers. "Take as much as you can." He abandoned Lara to see whether there were any lingering Solari on the top floors, but there were none when he reached the roof. "Lara, come up here." The archer found him on the roof, near the edge where the target of their quest stood towering in front of them. A radio tower. "We made it," Patronus said, before noticing the rope connecting their building to the tower. "I assume you know how to traverse on rope?" he inquired before Lara grasped the rope and hanged herself in the inverted posture as she crossed to the tower. "I'll take that as yes." He could easily jump across the gap, but his main goal was to keep his genuine talents secret as much as possible. Patronus sighed heavily before following Lara's lead, despite the fact that his hood was dangerously close to coming undone the entire time. When they arrived at the tower, Lara took the lead and climbed the ladder, saying, "Okay, here goes." "I'll notify Cap," Patronus said as Lara nodded and continued her ascent. "CA, please come in." "This is Patronus, please come in," he said, rolling up his sleeve and activating the touchscreen. Patronus. "It's been a while, is everything all right?" "Yeah, Lara and I got to the radio tower, and she's climbing it right now." "Excellent. Once she's patched into the panel, I'll send an alert to SHIELD." "Alright, although I'd prefer they wait outside the storm." "Why?" "Ah, I see. To avoid additional casualties on the island." "Exactly," Patronus replied before beginning his ascent of the tower when Lara was halfway to the top. "Lara, how are we doing up there?" Lara sat against the railing that gave her with safety once she arrived before pulling out her radio. "Peachy, Patronus," she replied before addressing the expert. "Alex?" "Lara." Alex replied across both Patronus and Lara's radios. "I'm at the panel," Lara replied after opening it and viewing the inside, which was filled with buttons and meters, while Patronus quickly climbed up to the last stable floor where he could see her. "Alright. The tower should boost the signal from the transmitter," Alex explained. "Captain America, you should be ready to send your SOS." "Affirmative, Alex." "Lara, please let me know when the transmitter is operational." "Okay," Lara said before inserting the heavy transmitter into the panel. "Now what?" "Now, find the emergency channel on your radio and get a clear signal before broadcasting the SOS." Lara adjusted the panel to receive a clear signal, while Patronus waited below, keeping a careful eye on her in case something went wrong. "Hey Alex," he said to the computer guru. "Patronus, right? What exactly is it? If Captain America is going to send an SOS via my radio, shouldn't I be close to the panel as well for the boost?" Naruto wondered, hoping this wasn't the case. "Fortunately, no, according to Captain, The latest shield technology does not need to be in the panel's close range, but rather within its proximity or general area. So, if I'm... He measured the distance between himself and Lara as accurately as he could. Would 60 feet between Lara and the panel work? Yes. Give or take, Alex replied hesitantly. Patronus responded, that's reassuring. Lara continued to listen the panel, ignoring the side talk, until she heard a voice.
You're tuned to the International Emergency Broadcast Response System. Lara exclaimed as she increased her tuning of the panel to get a clearer message. Please identify your situation and coordinates and wait for a response. I got it, Lara exclaimed to Patronus, who forwarded the message to Captain. Mayday, Mayday, this is Lara Croft of the Endurance. We are stranded on an island in the Dragon's Triangle. We need help and medical supplies. Please respond. Meanwhile, Patronus was listening to Captain America's own distress call to the SHIELD headquarters in Osaka. Osaka SHIELD, this is Captain America. I am stranded on an island in Forbidden Zone 300 Beta, along with Hero Patronus, who is assisting me. There are civilians from the Endurance shipwreck. There are less than 10 members in total, not including myself and Patronus. One man is in need of medical attention. I initiate Blue Code 134 of Section 129. When there was no response from the signal, Lara returned to the Archer on the highest point of the tower and seized the radio. Mayday, Mayday, this is Lara Croft of the Endurance, she says. This is aircraft N-177A. Lara exhaled a sigh of relief when she finally reached someone. I've been looking for you since your vessel's distress call. I had almost given up hope.
So had we, Lara said honestly as Patronus grinned down at her. We have your approximate location, but we could use a visual. I'll figure something out, Lara responded quickly, wanting to be free of her nightmare.
We'll be on our way to you soon. Out. Lara groaned again, and Alex's laughter could be heard over the radio. You are my hero, Lara Croft. Alex paused slightly before continuing. Hey, you know, Reyes actually just smiled. Patronus grinned at that bit of information as Lara considered the signal to help the plane. Patronus, she exclaimed as the hooded hero glanced up at her. What do you have for a signal? The ninja deliberated about how to use the signal. They could use one of his explosive tags, but the force could result in an avalanche, which he does not desire. Nope. What are you thinking? Patronus replied, shaking his head as Lara climbed back to his level. Follow me, Lara shouted emphatically before using her bow to descend a zipline that led to a different valley away from the radio tower, while Patronus followed her with his rope dart in the same direction. That's one way to get down. Patronus laughed as he looked over the fence and spotted the tower complex. No kidding. He and Lara strolled through a tiny path that led to a clearing with a building and something they both recognized. They both said at the same time, fuel tanks. Patronus used his strength to open a valve, releasing the fuming liquid on the ground, while Lara went inside the abandoned structure looking for something to ignite the fire. The Archer returned with a burning rag, which he hurled at the liquid, igniting it and tracing it back to the gasoline tanks. As the tanks erupted into flames, the pair took cover in an abandoned structure, waiting for any sign of the aircraft. Lara noticed a face in the corner of her eye and waved her arms as Patronus turned to face her. There it is. The ninja also looked up at the sky and followed Lara's current action in order to capture the plane pilot's attention. A sense of horror flooded over the two as a single lightning bolt impacted the engines of the soaring vehicle, along with 3 words. No one ever leaves. Dread gripped Lara even more when the plane was struck by another lightning bolt, igniting the vehicle as it dropped quickly. Worse, it was heading directly for them. Oh crap, run, yelled Patronus as he and Lara dashed to the other side and plummeted down a steep hill. The plane shattered into many pieces, which rolled over them as they slid uncontrollably until a single engine detonated behind them, throwing them briefly into the air. Patronus, sensing an opportunity, reached out for Lara and drew her close to his body, using his body as a human sled down the hill. Lara wanted to argue, but instead she gripped Patronus' arm tightly as he dodged dangerous debris and obstructions that threatened to distort them into pieces. Their unwelcome sliding journey came to an end when they reached the bottom, which was a precipice, and their bodies were unable to control themselves in time. With no other choice, Patronus drew Tenkaichi and stabbed its blade into the earth to slow themselves down. He and Lara soon found themselves hanging by the cliff's edge, only to be saved by his sword. Are you okay? The ninja inquired, looking down at Lara. Quote. Yeah, Lara panted as Patronus dragged himself and her to the cliff's edge and firm ground. Their relaxation was brief, as another crash drew their attention and they noticed a rolling engine approaching them. Jump.
Just as the engine rolled past them, the Croft and Uzumaki jumped to the right, where there was an old wooden building, and tumbled off the ledge and down the cliff. Lara coughed as she tried to rise up, attempting to ignore the pain all over her body, before grabbing a canteen and drinking the cool liquid within. Rest for now, Lara, Patronus said, rolling his shoulders and stretching his back. Are you okay? Lara inquired, concerned. After all, he bore the brunt of their recent slide behavior and shielded her for the majority of it. Patronus raised a thumbs up without looking at her, silently chuckling at her concern for him. What she didn't realize was that his blue undershirt of his robes was a tight bodysuit, which Naruto preferred for extra protection. That's correct. It's the Nemean lion's pelt he obtained after fighting said creature in the Soul Universe, and it's possibly one of his most precious items, along with his hidden and pivot blades and tenkaichi. It was there, along with another being he brought with him, but it was at home, enjoying the cove's waters right now. I should tell Cap the bad news, Patronus said as he raised his right arm, his fingertips quickly activating the touchscreen. TTIIPMX. A few minutes before, Mountain Village to Cliffside Village.
After redressing Roth's wounds, Captain America gently pushed him against the boulder. The seasoned soldier resolved to help Patronus and Lara in a different way. He could see the visible elderly man's face light up with relief once his own SOS was sent together with Lara's mayday. Their optimism was dashed, however, when they heard a huge boom followed by an even louder smash high in the mountains. We'll be out of here soon, Roth. Just hang in there, Steve remarked calmly as he stood guard around their perimeter. Sure, I can take it easy. For now, at least, Captain America said after a little pause. You know, I heard stories about you growing up, and they called you a lot of names after the war. Steve turned completely around to give his entire attention. Your father served.
Grandfather, he came from a Navy family but enlisted in the Army instead, Roth said, chuckling roughly. That made his father very unhappy. Let me guess. Navy-Army rivalry. Nope, for a woman in the Army. My grandmother, Roth giggled again, recalling his father telling him the story as a child. I'm glad he did, because otherwise I wouldn't be here.
Steve chuckled as he remembered a special woman who had piqued his interest during the battle. They promised him a dance at the end of the war, but he ended up turning into a human popsicle for the following 70 years. The things we do for a woman who catches our attention, Roth chuckled again, until they heard a huge crash in the sky, forcing them to look up and see the unmistakable outline of a plane crashing in the upper mountains. Roth was seized with dread as his concern for Lara multiplied by 100 because she was up there. When Cap's communicator beeped loudly, his breath became locked in his throat. Patronus, I hope you're calling to wave the plane down, Cap said through the touch screen, hoping what he saw was a trick of his eyes. Despite the fact that he knew that wasn't the case. Would you believe me if I told you right now? As Cap's demeanor became solemn, the last vestiges of levity vanished. Patronus, please tell me. A plane was shot down. I know, Roth and I saw it. Cap and Roth exchanged surprised expressions. By what, though? A lightning bolt. It struck their engines twice. I guess lightning does strike the same place twice, Roth mumbled, trying to mask his discomfort. Lara and I escaped the rolling debris of death that tried to squish us, and we. Patronus paused mid-sentence. Well, that's something you don't see every day. What? The pilot in a parachute just floated down the valley, screaming for help. Lara and I are going to try to assist him. Yes, Roth and I will meet you halfway, be cautious. You, too. TDIIPMXDIPMXDIPM, Cliffside Town. Patronus and Lara followed the pilot's path and discovered a wooden platform, followed by a series of wooden old buildings erected in a decreasing formation towards the cliffside. You ready? Patronus questioned his buddy, who nodded before swinging forward to the suspended building with the hanging banner, as Lara did. The building, on the other hand, shook somewhat when they landed before aggressively shaking, prompting them to sprint towards and jump numerous more buildings that shook and crumpled after each time they climbed or jumped onto them. The floor gave way in a tilting formation on the second-to-last building, causing them to fall down to the last building and land roughly on the new wooden floor. For at least one of them. Lara sighed as she rolled onto her back, then stood up with Patronus' assistance just as they heard gunfire. What the hell? Get out! Patronus and Lara approached the scene with caution as they turned the corner and observed the downed pilot shooting down two Solari wielding shields and machetes. He killed one of the Solari but was macheted in the chest by the other. Lara, are you there? Roth's voice blared from both Patronus and Lara's radios, drawing the Solari's attention. He charged at them, only for Patronus to meet him squarely in the face and clothesline him with his arm before finishing him out with a punch to the head. Patronus threw the Solari aside as he approached the deceased pilot and removed his helmet, closed his eyelids and reciting the renowned words of an assassin. With difficulty, he said, "Requiescat in pace." "You know Italian," Lara remarked, surprised. Also, Japanese, she remembered from when Patronus had saved her from the wolf. "I'm guessing you heard the voice, right?"
Patronus nodded and echoed the storm's words. "No one leaves. Someone's controlling the storms. It's obviously the head honcho around here." He slapped a tag on the body before continuing forward, Lara following behind.
It wasn't until then that the body vanished from where it had been lying and teleported to the cave on the seashore. As they heard Roth's voice again, they hopped across a gap to a wooden bridge and came across a tiny area with stone stairs to the left. "Lara, what the hell happened?" Despite Patronus' earlier report, Lara reiterated what happened with the plane. The archer knew he needed to hear her voice and confirm that she was still alive. "Listen, I saw the crash, so you and Patronus aren't far from us. Be careful, you two." Patronus snapped softly, much to Lara's displeasure, "If you want to know about the pilot, Roth, he's dead." "Oh, what happened?" "The Solari happened. The crazed nuts with machetes and shields on this island. They got to him first before we could help." Patronus cut the transmission as he and Lara traveled through the short tunnel as the sun burnt brightly. Patronus came to a halt, holding his fist, while Lara scanned ahead with his Kitsune Sense and discovered 3 Solari in front of a structure. He also noticed a pulley nearby with a rope hidden among the foliage. "Wait right here." Patronus expertly approached the tree and climbed it without making a single sound before cutting the rope trap with his pivot blade. "What the hell?" exclaimed one of the Solari as the trap clattered. "Go check it out." Patronus watched until the lone Solari approached the tree with caution, as his colleagues crouched in the building's clearing. Showtime. And it did happen. The takedown was unlike anything Lara had ever seen. She saw Patronus land on the Solari and strike his skull before kicking a box at the 2 Solari who charged at him. One of them avoided it, while the other did not. Then she noticed a rope with a dart at its head, which dug at the last Solari's shoulder before being taunted by Patronus, dragging the islander to him as he tripped the ladder and struck out with a hand chop to the neck. Before his body made contact with the earth, he was unconscious. Wow! Lara exclaimed in real wonder. Lara emerged from her hiding position and hurried towards Patronus after seeing his, "Okay," gesture. She noticed the pulley trap but frowned at the relatively huge bundle of rope, wondering if it would be beneficial to them.
"Take it," Lara said to Patronus, who was staring at her. "You never know when we'll need it," he thought as he saw the archer load the rope bundle alongside her quiver of arrows.
"Kill him." Lara and Patronus both stared back at the cliffside hanging dwellings as more Solari rushed for cover and fired machine guns at them. The archer and the ninja crouched behind a pair of stacked boxes.
Lara looked around at the houses and noticed one had rope-covered beams, so she decided to utilize her new equipment. The Croft grabbed and wrapped the rope around an arrow, aimed at the stable beam, and launched the projectile before pulling it taut with all her strength.
As a result of the strength drawn from the activity, the house's sturdy beam gave way, causing the floor to become uneven as the Solari within fell to their doom. Patronus had already dispatched the other 2 Solari with a couple kunai to the chest before hurling a shuriken at the last one. Lara had to wonder, did that shuriken just curve? After witnessing the projectile accomplish an impossible action, she gazed up at Patronus, who had risen. "Who are you?" she inquired, intrigued. "Hey, snap out of it," Patronus said, snapping his fingers in front of Croft's face, jolting her back to reality. "We need to get going." Lara spotted the hung box wrapped in layers of rope and had an idea, slamming her hands on her face to regain her focus. Lara took the newly roped arrow in her hands and prepared it for another shot before firing it at the box and heaving it with a few of pulls before jumping forward and grabbing onto it. Patronus remarked as Lara leapt to the cliffside dwelling, "Smart." He imitated her and used his rope dart to catch up to her. The Uzumaki Croft crew proceeded cautiously through the trail beyond until they came to a huge river. An old wooden Shinto torii with layered rope in the middle of its design stood on the opposite side of the rear, while an anchor post stood on their side. Lara cut the required quantity of rope before firing another rope arrow and using it as a rope bridge while she climbed across it, repeating the process from previously. Patronus, on the other hand, used his footing to cross horizontally like a typical ninja in his dimension would without Lara seeing. They came to a dead end in the form of a three-sided wall until Lara discovered a door with layered rope.
"You don't have to do it all the time, you know," Patronus said as Lara pushed open the door with another rope arrow. He noted her sheepish expression. "But, then again, it does look cool when you do it." Lara giggled gently as they entered the dark tunnel, until the archer reignited her torch. TTIIPMX TTIIPMX TTIIPM prospects for the village. They arrived at the end of the tunnel and encountered two familiar faces after a rapid fall down an unexpected hill. "Roth, Cap," exclaimed Lara and Patronus to the veterans. "I'm glad you moved," the archer said as she embraced her tutor, who had returned while Patronus and they exchanged handshakes.
"You and me, both, girl." They were fine for a minute, then this storm came out and blasted them out of the sky, Lara admitted, confessing guilt over the plane's current position. Roth comforted her by placing his hand on her shoulder. "It's not your fault, Lara. Know that." Captain added, "I agree with Roth here. These situations can be unpredictable. All we can do is adapt," Lara said, blushing slightly as Roth looked at the seasoned soldier. Fortunately for them, a voice rang out through their communication channels. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Jessup, co-pilot of N-177A. Another pilot?" Lara questioned, surprised, before responding. "Hello, hello, hello, can you hear me? I was badly injured when I landed and want immediate medical attention." "Is there anyone here?" Jessup hastily added. Patronus cocked his head while Lara spoke over the radio with the pilot. "Captain Jessup, do you read?" Lara inquired again.
"I've set up a smoke signal. Please reply." "We can hear him, but he apparently can't hear you," Captain America stated, stating the obvious for the group. Patronus turned his head to observe a blue haze in the distance after noticing something out of the corner of his eye. "Look, guys," he said, pointing to the smoke. "He's over there. Let's go get him."
"We've got our own people to worry about," Roth stated, attempting to persuade the Endurance's hooded hero. "We'll need to regroup as soon as they find Sam. I can't leave the pilot alone. I'm not going to let another civilian die because of these Solary assholes," Patronus stated sternly as he began his journey to the pilot's location. Lara gazed at Roth and Patronus many times before taking a step nearer, staring down at his receding body. That is, until Roth's hold snagged her arm. "Sometimes you have to make sacrifices, Lara, neither you nor he can save everyone." "I know all about sacrifices," Lara said sharply as she yanked her arm free from his grasp. "Otherwise," Roth shook his head. "You are aware of loss. Sacrifice is a choice you make, whereas loss is a choice made for you." "Well, that's something Patronus and I share. Neither of us can choose to let him die, Roth," Lara replied before departing, leaving Roth and Captain America behind until they decided to meet them on the opposite side of the valley via another route. Lara had only just reached the cliff when she noticed Patronus on the ground level, which concerned her. "How did he?" She shrugged her head in favor of firing a rope arrow at the Shinto torii below and attached the end to the anchor post, descending the new zipline she made with her bow as she soon fell to the earth next to Patronus.
"You're still here," Lara said, though she had the impression it wasn't in a hostile tone. It was more complimentary, even praising in nature. "Good," Patronus replied candidly as they crossed the bridge shortly before hearing voices again. A Solary simply stated, "This hut appears to be clear. We're not going to find anyone up here," the second Solary replied, as Patronus and Lara approached with weapons drawn. "You're probably right," the first Solary replied, "but we have orders," he added at the last time. As they clocked 3 Solary with guns, Patronus and Lara employed their different senses to investigate the huts nearby. The cloaked ninja spoke to Lara about a strategy, to which she nodded and departed the hut just as the Solari did. We should head back to the ruins. The third Solari, clearly the commander of the group, eventually spoke in hushed tones. I'm going down to join the others at the plan, while you keep checking the ruins. And where is this plane, I wonder? A voice from behind them inquired as they whirled around to see the frightening hooded figure with his hands on his hips. The one who killed several of their brothers, as well as the female survivor. Kill him, yelled the Solari commander as he raised his gun to annihilate the enemy. The action he desired did not begin because Patronus' golden blade split the barrel of his rifle in half. Kill him, you idiots. He turned around when he didn't hear anything else, his eyes widening as the bodies lay on the ground, a single arrow sunk into their chest cavity.
Asterisk whistle, come on over here. When the man turned his head towards Patronus, he punched him. He nodded appreciatively to Lara before they dragged the bodies out of sight and into one of the cottages. Patronus also destroyed their radios in case the lone Solari awoke and warned his fellow Solari.
They were walking up the hill after Lara inspected the cottages and discovered another component of a bow to enhance it when their radios blared with Reyes' voice. Anyone out there? Roth? Questioned a female voice over static. I'm here with Captain America, Reyes. What's your situation? Patronus and Lara came to a halt in the center of the strewn concrete tiled sidewalk as Reyes revealed her latest find. We followed a group of men to some kind of city. This place is insane, Roth. What the hell are they doing here? I don't know, and I don't think I want to know. Roth replied truthfully. Any sign of Sam or Whitman? Nothing yet. Are you with Lara? No. We met briefly but soon parted ways. Lara went to help one of the pilots who survived the crash, but Patronus is with her. Alex's anxious voice entered the fray. What crash? What are you talking about? You mean Patronus wasn't kidding about that at all? Patronus finally responded through the touch screen. I'm afraid not, Alex. Listen, Lara and I will be heading down the mountain soon to meet up with you and Reyes. Roth and I will meet you too on your way there. Everyone keep your eyes and ears open, the captain ordered sternly to everyone in the channel. A chorus of "Yes sir" rang through the static link until it fell silent as all parties parted ways in search of the rendezvous place. Patronus and Lara had reached the top of the mountainside they were walking on when the latter abruptly changed his mind. Did we just walk in a big circle? Asked the ninja, pointing to the previously used bridge. That's the plane, he exclaimed, pointing to a certain site. And that's where we left Cap and Roth when we went looking for the radio tower. Lara chuckled sarcastically, her shoulders hurting. That's the way it goes, I guess. She used her bow to slide the rope down to one of the lower-level houses, as did Patronus with his rope dart, and they both landed with a roll. They peered ahead and saw the blue smoke signal was closer than ever, indicating that the pilot was not far away. Patronus nudged Lara, directing her attention to the Torii gate on a level above them, and watched as she launched another rope arrow to serve as a bridge. The ninja and archer dashed towards a craggy wall before climbing it to the ledge, just as additional voices were heard. Come on, we've got to get back. Shut up and let me finish, said the second Solari angrily. Lara and Patronus peered over the edge, where they spotted two Solari standing. One of them was taking a piss. All right, then, let's go. When he was finished, his Solari buddy immediately began a chat. So, what's the first thing you're gonna do if you ever get off this rock? Eat a good meal, the revitalized Solari replied with a giggle. Goddamn. Yes, the other Solari replied, relieved since that was the best answer he had ever heard. What's it going to be? A burger. Some greasy fries. And a cold beer. When they were gone inside the cave and Patronus and Lara had had enough of their chatter, they hauled themselves up and debated whether to follow the Solari into the cave. Let's take the less traveled path, Patronus suggested, pointing to another Torii gate on the opposite side of a gap. After crossing it with Lara's rope arrow, the pair jogged quietly along the rugged road until they came to a tiny plaza where three independent mountain pillars with anchor posts on each stood before them beneath their current location. There was a fourth in the back of the three mountains, with their goal in sight. Blue smoke is a distress signal. Patronus stopped Lara from grabbing another rope arrow. We need to save your arrows and rope. Let me do this one. The ninja, assassin drew out his rope dart. A very long rope dart that he was keeping for a larger opponent just in case. Here goes. Lara watched as Patronus threw the dart at one of the anchor posts with strength she'd never seen before. She initially thought it wouldn't reach it, but she was astounded when it did the exact opposite. Lara grunted when she landed and almost dodged the post as she spun around to see her hero companion untying the end of the rope. Instead of dropping, he was swinging towards, or, beneath her. Patronus said sheepishly, "I meant to do that. I really did," he said as he climbed the mountain and loosened the rope dart from the pole before tucking it inside his pouch. Lara laughed and shook her head. "Sure, you did." With that in mind, the two climbed the treacherous mountains using either Lara's rope arrows or Naruto's rope darts. The end of their voyage was nigh as they traveled to the last mountain, which housed the pilot and what appeared to be a gigantic statue. The post was faltering as they crossed, urging them to accelerate lest they tumble to their doom, or at least one of them. Patronus gripped Lara's leg just as the anchor fell, sending them to the ground as the sensation of weakness worsened. Naruto foresaw this and swung his pivot blade against a craggy wall and his chakra-covered feet, rescuing them, especially Lara, from death. Patronus inquired of the upside-down Croft, "You good?" "Aside from a headache that's about to hit me, I'm fine. Next time, a heads up would be appreciated." "Chuckle my bad." They paused for a moment after dragging themselves up to the mountain's ledge before continuing their task. Patronus and Lara stared over the side, but there was no pilot. He should be nearby. Lara nodded as she followed Patronus. "Let's go." She and Patronus dashed down the route, sliding down a steep hill. TTIIPMX TTIIPMX TTIIPM The arid canyon, Lara, Patronus. "Dot, are you there?" Alex inquired, drawing their attention as Patronus utilized his touch screen for both him and Lara. "We're here, Alex. Is there any sign of Sam?" Lara inquired eagerly. "We tracked her down to some old Japanese palace." "I don't like the sound of that," Lara conceded, understandably concerned. Patronus nodded in response to her remarks. "I wouldn't like the sound of that, with that voice we heard, the plane crash, and the Solary bastards." "Don't worry, she's probably just sightseeing," Alex said, much to Patronus' delight. "You're a terrible liar, Alex," she said as Patronus snorted loudly enough for her and Alex to hear. "Anyway, you have to be careful in there. Good luck." She entered another cave ahead of them and ignited a match before burning her torch. Patronus bowed to her and motioned with his right arm to the caves inside. "After you, my lady." "What a gentleman," Lara remarked sarcastically, rolling her eyes. She led the way through the dark dungeons to a decent-sized room with a bit of light from outside, and the Croft let out an awe-filled cry when she saw them. "Ruins. Lara? Why'd you stop?" Patronus stood in front of her and waved his hand at her a couple times. "Hello?" "These ruins predate the Kofun period," Lara explained, still in amazement of her latest find as she examined it. Patronus said the only words he could think of at the time with a tilt of his head. "The what?" "Hey wait." He followed the girl as she proceeded along another hallway with more statues and images on both sides of the walls. "A pilgrimage," Lara exclaimed as they approached the end of the corridor, until she discovered another statue, which was larger than the others. "Himiko, a queen?" When she shouted the name, Patronus' head snapped to her. "Himiko?" Lara asked, turning to face him. "Did you just say Himiko?" she said, hesitantly nodding. "This is where she is. Good." "What?" Lara inquired, unable to hear him. Patronus, on the other hand, waved her off. "Nothing," he said, looking past her to the pilot on the other side of the stone bridge. Is that the pilot?" "Captain Jessup," Lara yelled as she hurried out towards him, only to be stopped by the sight of blood. Naruto gazed up at the building above the pilot, his senses heightened, and watched a Solary archer toss a pair of wrapped bombs towards the bridge. "Lara, get back!" He ran at her, clutching her body in a tight brace and leaping away as the archer launched a fiery arrow. As Patronus growled against the hit, the force of the explosion drove them further away from the bridge. "Are you okay?" he questioned the girl, who nodded as they both stood up and glanced across the bridge to see a man in hooded rags. "You two have caused me a lot of trouble, but you are both naive and predictable," the man mocked before yelling, "Kill them." Solary suddenly surrounded the two and charged at them. Lara evaded one attack and fired one shot at the Solary, but that was all she got before being knocked out by another. Meanwhile, Patronus waited there with his head bowed, waiting for the surviving Solary to charge him. "Father Mathis, what should we do with this one?" inquired one of the Solary. "Rip him to shreds," says the narrator. "The ones who will be ripped to shreds." Patronus turned to confront Mathis, his fiery gaze piercing the hooded man. Mathis trembled when he noticed the crimson eyes and realized he wasn't normal. Kill him already. With pleasure, exclaimed the Solari before charging in with his machete poised. Patronus lashed out with Tenkaichi, removing the heads of the encircled Solari as they fell from their bodies, and stated objects did the same a second later. Mathis hurried back into the building as its stone doors closed behind him, having seen this happen before. Patronus growled and flipped his sword to clear the blood before sheathing it as he attempted to awaken Lara. "Lara, get up. Come on." He shook her fiercely, but she remained asleep. "I guess I'll have to carry you." Naruto could only blame himself for being sent flying by something with the strength to do so, whether it was his overconfidence or his guard being down for the time. Grunting as he proceeded towards the hole his body had caused in the wall, the ninja looked for the one who had sent him packing. He was on the other side of the stone building, which explained his whereabouts. Patronus moved to the other side and observed a swarm of monsters standing on the other side where he had been, all snarling at him when he appeared. They were divided into two sections since they were so dissimilar. On the left side of his vision were mummified like dead soldiers dressed in traditional and medieval Japanese samurai armor, which he recognized after spending an afternoon with Seiko back in the Soul Universe at Tokyo's National Museum. The right part was filled with massive creatures that reminded him of the Onryoki he fought in Manhattan, only their stature and the horns on their forehead were lesser but still larger than the typical man. Katanas were in their right hands, along with a solitary piece of black armor for the chest and legs. The most likely perpetrator was the one that knocked him into the building he's in, and boy was it awful. It was 2 heads taller than the smaller Onryoki Juniors behind it, with its massive muscular physique and arms swaying slightly to the side and its eyes bulging out of its sockets. Crack-like veins decorated its blazing hands all the way to its forearms, while skulls of its victims hung like prayer beads about its monk-like cords. But the most distinguishing feature was its tongue. Its unusually long tongue, which appeared to be roughly 15 feet long. "Ah. You are one ugly motherfucker." Patronus gagged loudly, referencing the Smash classic, Predator. "I've met a lot of baddies, but these guys take the cake. And that's not the worst of them for the time being." Naruto was perplexed when Ashura talked over their link. "What exactly do you mean?" Naruto inquired before raising his left arm and blocking an arrow with the metal plate hidden in his sleeves. "All well, then. It's time to show these folks who's in charge around here." Patronus cleared the vast gap with a casual yet powerful leap, unsheathing Tenkaichi and slashing at the Onryoki Jr., chopping him in half. When the creatures realized what had happened, they all took a step back, giving Patronus a smile. Naruto was receiving new information from his ancestor as he went to work. Those creatures are not Onryoki, but if given enough time, they can evolve into one. They're called Yoki, and they're fierce in their own right, so be cautious. So the first person he killed on his rampage was a Yoki? That's useful to know. Also, the big guy with the tongue is an Onudo, a type of yokai who takes the form of a massive monk who failed to let go of their earthly desires and violated the rules of their temple. Patronus and Kurama thanked Hagoromo's ghostly son for the information. Naruto had been researching the many forms of yokai he could discover in Japanese folklore and tales ever since the Onryoki conflict and learning about its nature as a yokai. He even read manga to help fill in the blanks, despite the fact that it was fiction. This also assisted him in identifying the floating heads who assaulted him, Lara, Captain America, and Roth earlier at the mountain village. They were Oni-bai, fiery floating demonic heads that took on the color of the element to which they were subjected, be it water, earth, fire, wind, or lightning. Patronus glanced around for more opponents to come after slaying a large number of Yoki until he remembered the one who was with him. "Lara!" he yelled as he sought for her, dodging oncoming foes and looking for the last place he saw her. She was nowhere to be found. "No, these bastards!" Patronus' offensive came to a halt as he stood there, his sword locked in his grip. The yokai and samurai warriors recognized their opportunity and charged at him with their weapons, hands, or demonic abilities at their disposal. What they didn't see or feel was Patronus's extreme wrath as his body shook and his eyes went crimson like the fox within him. He failed to save the first pilot, then Jessup, both of whom had loved ones waiting for them at home. "No, not her. This time, no. I'm not going to let it happen." Patronus raised his head, displaying his monster adversary's red eyes as his signature move burst to life in his left palm. "I'm not going to let it happen." Rasengan. He blasted the spinning chakra sphere at Yoki's closest head, cutting through it like butter. "Who's next?" He commanded that his next victim come forward, but all but the Onudo did. Good, I have an issue with you. Patronus raised his hands and pointed his blade towards the gigantic yokai before thrusting its blade into the earth next to him, cracking his knuckles as he did so. A Rasengan with 4 white jagged protrusions stood in the gap between them. Come to your end. Rasengan, Futon. TTIIPMX TTIIPMX TTIIPM located beneath the mountain village. Captain America turned his attention in the direction of a menacing presence deep within the mountains. The same path he last witnessed Patronus and Lara go to save the pilot. He could only pray that they were safe, but... Patronus, please come in. Do you imitate Patronus? Crackle of static. Either he's deep underground or they're in serious trouble. Captain pondered as he looked over at Roth, who was standing with his crotch in place. Hopefully, it's not the latter. Thank you for not causing me concern, Roth remarked sarcastically as Cap nervously giggled. It wasn't until they arrived at a tiny area with a little waterfall and buildings that the living legend's senses went into overdrive. Captain America pushed Roth to the side with his extraordinary reflexes as he dodged to the opposite side. As it went high into the air, the source that was causing his senses to blare blurred past where they were standing. Captain America prepared for battle, but was caught off guard when the sun was obscured by clouds that appeared out of nowhere. When a figure descended from the clouds, its bat-like wings flapping gently out of her back, his eyes were glued to the sky. Yes, it was a female, and she appeared to be lethal. Her exceedingly pale skin shone somewhat in the semi-darkness as her yellow eyes with black irises peered at him with unquenchable longing. Her black robe like enripped clothes blew in the wind, her black hood covering her head, and an object in the back. Is she? Roth searched for the following words but came up empty-handed. Stay right there. While the old man was hiding behind a tree near the bank, Captain yelled loudly to him. My darling, you're finally here. The ladylike thing talked in a seductive tone, which perplexed the 2 men below. Come over to me. When he saw her diving for him, Captain America leapt to a nearby tree and hoisted himself on a branch, while the lady thing missed him by a mile. She's quick. I must remain vigilant. He made it to the top of the tree with 3 rapid acrobatic jumps after his eyes caught her executing a turnabout towards him. The opponent had anticipated this and floated to the location where her darling was expected to arrive. She swung her arm at him, planning to grasp him with her hidden strength and drink his blood when they returned to her cave. Cap saw this coming and deflected her clutching hand with his shield, making a loud pang sound as he quickly hopped off the summit to another tree and 3 more after that with fluid motions that could only be achieved by training with his enemy in tow. Patronus, Patronus. Do you read what I'm saying? The hero of Boston did not respond. Patronus, please come in. Once again, no response was received. He was going to call him again when he noticed a large branch ahead of him and had an idea. Hopefully, this works. When he came into range, Captain America seized the massive branch and quickly wound it back like a catapult as he waited for his opponent to come into range. Luckily there was a small mist to disguise his movements. The bad news was that he couldn't see her as well as she could. Cap turned his head slightly as he waited, his improved hearing picking up the familiar sound of flapped wings. Coming from behind him, he flipped over the branch and brought it to the other side before releasing just as the creature unveiled herself with multiple flaring crimson-red tongues and her arms stretched out as if ready to grab him. Captain waited a little longer before attempting to reach Patronus and Lara again, hoping for a response this time. This time it came from a panting Patronus. You rang? Equals, Cap pant you rang? I tried calling you 3 times. How come you haven't responded? Captain inquired, irritated by the lack of reaction previously. I was defending myself against a swarm of yokai and undead samurai warriors who were about to skewer me. Equals Cap's rage faded as he became bashful. These yokai are not a joke. Yokai? Steve spoke it again because he recognized the word. Fortunately, Patronus provided him with all of the necessary information. Equals, Japanese mythology and legends creatures. There appear to be some on the island. Equals. On the island? Cap returned to the location where he last saw his adversary before she struck him in the head with a tree. It could be. He spoke to the communications once more while remaining watchful. Patronus, are there any female yokai? Why are there so many? Please provide details about her. Equals. Pale skin, black bat wings, red tongue and lips, and... Captain hesitated for a bit, trying to recall the last description he saw. And tattoos. He heard Patronus repeat the descriptions and hoped to be faster because the flapping was heard again, suggesting that she was in flight. Ooh, I understand what you're going through. Patronus responded in a hesitant and disturbed tone. You are confronted with the embodiment of female jealousy after death. It's a hino enma. Hino enma. She's essentially a vampire. She feeds on the blood of young males whom she claims to be her long-lost darling. If she's pursuing you, keep your eyes peeled, Cap, for she's after your blood. After Patronus's emphasis on his blood, a drop of sweat landed on Cap's brow. I'll remember that. Thank you, and please keep Ms. Croft safe. Will suffice. I swear. Patronus is gone. Cap's brow furrowed as he struggled to figure out his hero companion's strange tone in his last transmission. Ah. Cap dashed back to the spot where he had left Roth for shelter while battling the Hino Enma. Fortunately, the mist had cleared enough for him to see. The bad news was that the Hino Enma could see Roth, who appeared to be frozen in place despite the relative term. Except he didn't have any ice on him. Is he completely paralyzed? Cap shook his head as he flung his shield towards Hino Enma's unprotected back. It missed his intended target but found a new one. Sorry about that. Roth, with a new bump on his skull, stared at the sheepish shield-bearer after reeling back his head from the collision. Watch where you're aiming that thing. It was a fortuitous throw, though, as the shield ricocheted off a tree and returned to him. And at the perfect time, Captain America braced himself as he struggled to determine her whereabouts after hearing a shriek-like shout all around him. Move. Cap, you have to get moving. Captain had already been hit by a shockwave before Roth concluded his warning. It was far worse for Rogers, who couldn't move his arms, legs, or even his fingers. As he fought to shake the poison from his body, his face scrounged in pain. Even with his superhuman resistance, it took a lot of his strength just to try to shake off the poison. My dear. Cap could only stand there and stare as the Hino Enma fell in front of him, her hands gently rubbing his shoulders and neck. You are, finally, mine. She was overjoyed to have her beloved in her arms, licking her lips in anticipation of swallowing his blood. Cap spoke the words of his hooded companion's childhood friend, unbeknownst to him as the Hino Enma's face gradually narrowed the distance between his. What a drag, to be continued.
That's it for this part, guys. Thanks for listening to this video. I hope that you enjoyed this part of the story, and if you did, like, share, and subscribe for more, and thank you all for support, and have a great day.